Alright, today we have a custom split mechanical keyboard build from RGB and this is their new Sol 2, and the group buy is just about to end, so yep, this is a prototype, so I don't have the final package and product. Okay, so first thing you should do is flash the PCB and test it, but being me, I didn't do that because I just wanted to get straight to building. It comes with 4 PCBs, so 2 for each side. We have the main pieces that the switches and everything else is mounted to, and then there's what's basically a board of LEDs. Here's the super thick 4.8mm aluminium plate, which should make for a nicer feeling and potentially sounding experience, and it is also available in a bunch of colours. The case is made from polycarbonate, which is what high-end custom plastic mechs tend to be made of rather than acrylic. Again, this isn't the final product, so the finish isn't perfect, and it's more like a top housing rather than a complete case, as you'll see later. Now let's actually build it. First thing is to deal with the gasket mounting, which is done by just having O-rings going on either side of the plate. You don't want to over tighten the screws, you just want to screw them so that the bottom of the head is flush with the plate, just like in the diagram. And this just helps isolate the plate and the PCB from the case, which should be able to improve acoustics. The Sol 2 does support up to 6 rotary encoders and also 2 OLED panels, but these are not included and are just optional pieces. These should be installed before you put the plate on, therefore before you solder in the key switches. There's actually 4 spots on each PCB for the rotary encoders, but because I'm using OLED panels as well, that removes the green spots and also the blue spots. So I'll just use 1 encoder on each side because I don't want one over here. And just ignore that I put 2 encoders because I didn't know at the time. Next up we have the OLED panels. These guys have to be as close as possible to the PCB because there's little clearance from the plate, so you gotta get rid of the black headers, and I put electrical tape on the underside just in case so that nothing shorts with anything. Next up are the key switches. Since this is the brightest keyboard out there, you really should get RGB compatible key switches to get the full experience. So that's switches with clear housings, or ones with big holes on the bottom for the light to shine through. But without really thinking, I ordered a bunch of Gateron clears which have clear top housings but the traditional black bottoms. And yeah, I know no one likes Gateron clears, but I wanted something different. There is support for 2U keys for the thumb clusters, but I've gone with just 1U keys there. And yeah, I got sent the wrong size keycaps. They're supposed to be 1.5U, but I received 1.25U. And to add to that, I only ordered 8 because for some reason I thought it was just the Ergonox layout, but there's actually one more 1.5U key on each side, so yeah. Next issue. As said before, these aren't RGB compatible key switches and have the solid black housings, and I thought I should do something about it, and I definitely do not recommend or condone doing this as you risk messing up bad. But since there are these large holes in the PCB to allow that lighting to shine through, I went for it. I took my drill and carefully drilled majority of the key switch bottoms, and to add to that, it does throw a bit of dust around, and I actually went through the effort of lubing these switches, but the main stuff in the switch is in a different compartment, so it's not too bad. And not long after, I fully regretted my decision, as when I plugged it in, it didn't work anymore, but after a while and touching stuff on the PCB, it magically came back to life. But yeah, definitely do not recommend drilling switches when they are already soldered into the PCB. As you can see, the polycarbonate case is more just like a top housing, and the bottom is just the LED PCB. Therefore, you don't actually need the PC case, and there is that cheaper kit available without it. Cone feet are an additional option, but it will come with rubber feet, which I did not get, but I put on my own. With the rotary encoders, you gotta chuck on some caps. I did order silver ones as well, but they still haven't arrived from China, so I have these super bright copper ones, which I like the look of anyway. Since the spots for the OLED panels do fit key switches, there is a very large opening. So it looks pretty odd and janky with all the space around it. They have developed separate bezels for this though, but I had to do something myself, so I cut some 4.5mm clear acrylic and used a tiny bit of double-sided tape to keep it down. I actually did this purple version first, but I just didn't like the look of it. The paint finish wasn't the best anyway, as it was pretty cold outside, and I just much preferred the cleaner look. On the rear of each piece, there's 4 USB Type-C ports. I provided my own cables, so for the middle joining cable, you do need a USB-C to USB-C. There are a couple of options available, so there's the cheapest solar core kit that comes with the PCB's 1.6mm aluminium plate and mounting hardware. And then everything else is just an addition, so I have the 4.6mm alu plate, but there is also brass, and then the polycarb case, and there's also a full hand polycarb case with the wrist rest and stuff. But yeah, the cool thing is that you can go for the cheaper option, go mid, or go all out. It's all up to you. It's definitely one of the more unique keyboards in my collection and that I've done overall, and is one of the more premium split ergo boards out there, period. It was my first time using rotary encoders. I could have made an acrylic piece to kind of go around it to clean up the look, but I do love how they look, but more importantly, they're awesome to have on a keyboard because you can't really emulate that rotary action with standard mechanical key switches. It does support up to 6, but I did want to have the OLED panels. Unfortunately, I did damage the right one, but that just duplicates the left one. And yeah, it's more of a novelty / aesthetic thing for me personally rather than functional, but it does give relative information which is still useful. Now, a huge feature and part of the identity of the Soul 2 is of course the RGB lighting and being the brightest mechanical keyboard in the world. And it for sure is super bright. There's per key RGB lighting which are rated to 60 milliamps, and there's 128 of them which can go up to as much as 180 with additional LEDs and the wrist rests. The issue though is power draw, so the default hex file doesn't run the lighting at full power to ensure device compatibility. There's a bunch of effects and patterns that are readily available, and the two halves can work together, so that's pretty cool. Now to the actual usage of the keyboard. So this is pretty close to the good old ErgoDox, however it has a completely ortholinear design plus the thumb clusters. So it's just a grid basically, whereas the ErgoDox does have a columnar stagger. It does use the powerful QMK firmware, so you can customize whatever key to be whatever you want. The advantage of having a physically split keyboard is that we can angle and place the pieces to your liking. So with the normal keyboard, we have to kind of cram our arms and hands towards the center, which is unnatural. With a split, we can keep them wider apart and also angle them if we want to. Additionally, I do have the cone feed on mine which slightly tense it, meaning the inside is higher than the outside, again creating a more natural wrist position. This stuff does take time to get used to though. Admittedly, I don't have a proper typing technique, so I only use 3 fingers and thumb on my left and 2 on my right. And I feel that to fully utilize the ergonomic benefits of an ortho layout, you need that technique. I don't really have the time to fully delve into it, and I really would need a few weeks to get a better feel, but it's a split ortho and there's a bunch of them out there which people do seem to love, but I still can feel the ergonomic benefits of the better shoulder, arm and wrist positioning. I know the Gateron clears aren't the most popular key switch, but I have lubed these up, and typically lube linears with gasket mount should feel decent, and they are, but they are super light, which kinda doesn't bring out the best of it, but I still love it. So overall, it was a really fun building experience because there was a lot new to me about it. First of all, it's an ergo split, the separate LED PCBs, the OLED panels, rotary encoders, and just working through all of that was awesome. The build is fantastic with a 4.8mm aluminium plate, and with the O-ring mounting it makes for a sweet typing and sound experience. Unfortunately, ortholinear is not for me, but much of that is to do with time constraints. I do like the polycarbonate shell, and the LEDs glow super bright throughout the whole thing, and it really is the brightest mechanical keyboard in the world.